The world stopped and stared, from cozy living rooms to crowded town squares. People everywhere, no matter who they were, felt the same electric buzz of excitement. It was like time hit pause, and everyone was caught up in one huge shared moment. This wasn't just news. It felt like a turning point, something kids would hear about from their grandparents years later. Families huddled around TVs, old folks prayed softly, and kids watched with big, curious eyes, knowing something massive was happening. All attention locked on the Vatican. Millions whispered hopes and prayers. In St. Peter's Square, people stood packed together, their faces glowing from candles and the thrill in their hearts. Far away, in tiny churches and busy cities, even those who didn't believe found themselves glued to the moment. Everyone was waiting for one tiny sign that would kick off a brand new chapter. Then it happened. White smoke floated up from the chimney above the Sistine Chapel. For ages, this simple puff of smoke has meant something huge. A new leader was chosen. The crowd gasped, some cried, others grabbed hands, grinning in awe and relief. That white smoke, so light but so mighty, waved away doubts and lit up hope. It swirled into the Roman sky, a bright signal of change that everyone could see. Something incredible had just begun. The world let out a big sigh, like it had been holding its breath for days. That white smoke wasn't just a sign. It was a spark, a promise that something fresh and hopeful was coming. A new pope had been picked. Inside the Sistine Chapel, ancient traditions had unfolded behind closed doors, leading to a choice that would ripple through the Catholic Church and touch billions of lives. The cardinals, dressed in bright red robes, stepped out looking serious, carrying the weight of history. Everyone everywhere was on edge, waiting for the name that would soon ring out from the Vatican balcony. From huge cathedrals to tiny homes, people leaned closer to their screens and radios, eager to hear who their new spiritual leader would be. It felt like the whole world was tied together, buzzing with hope and excitement. In St. Peter's Square, the huge crowd went quiet. All you could hear were distant bells and soft prayers. Every eye was glued to the balcony, every heart pounding as one, waiting for a moment that would be remembered for generations. The silence was alive, crackling with the dreams of millions. Then, boom! The crowd exploded into cheers, a wild wave of joy crashing through. People laughed, cried, clapped, and hugged total strangers, swept up in the moment. Flags waved, and voices shouted in every language, from Rome to Manila, Buenos Aires to Nairobi. For a second, the world felt like one big family, celebrating together, no borders, no differences. As the news spread through cities and small villages, it showed how far the church reaches and how much people crave hope and guidance. When the new pope finally stepped onto the balcony, the crowd gasped in awe. For Catholics, and even those who aren't, this was a massive moment. A new beginning, full of hope, possibilities, and a brighter future for everyone. Church bells rang out from Rome's ancient streets to the far-off Philippines, as millions shared a burst of joy. In St. Peter's Square, pilgrims hugged and cried, strangers turning into family in this magical moment. In the Philippines, the whole country exploded with pride. Fireworks lit up the sky, and every church bell chimed wildly. Their own Cardinal, Luis Antonio Tagle, the Archbishop of Manila, had just become Pope Luis I, the first Filipino and Asian pope ever. For 3 days, the cardinals had been locked away, wrestling with a huge decision. The future of the Catholic Church was on the line. Inside the Sistine Chapel, they whispered about faith and leadership. feeling the world's hopes pressing down on them. Then a name started to spread. Tagle. His kindness, his love for the poor, and his warmth, so much like Pope Francis, won their hearts. On the third day, they made their choice. Cardinal Tagle got the votes he needed. The world held its breath. From every corner of the planet, millions stared at St. Peter's Basilica, waiting for history to unfold. In the square, people stood packed together, swapping stories, clutching rosaries, or waving flags from faraway places, all buzzing with hope. Rome's bells seemed to hush, as if the city itself was waiting for the big moment. Then, the balcony doors swung open. The red curtains parted, revealing a scene no one would forget. There stood Pope Luis I, dressed in a simple white robe that shone against the grand backdrop of St. Peter's. The massive columns and golden details faded away, and all eyes locked on this humble man carrying centuries of tradition. His smile was warm, his eyes sparkled with kindness and grace, a perfect mix of strength and gentleness, promising a fresh start while honoring the past. In that moment, Pope Luis I seemed to connect with every single person. Those cheering below in St. Peter's Square, and the millions watching from far away. His warm smile and kind eyes sparked a flood of feelings. Some people cried, others just stood there, amazed, soaking in the huge moment. His look promised care and hope, like he truly saw everyone. When he gave his first blessing, Urbi et Orbi, to the city and the world, the crowd went quiet. His soft, steady voice spoke ancient Latin words that felt like a warm hug wrapping around the square. For a second, like time froze. This wasn't just a tradition. It was a powerful call for peace and togetherness, reaching across countries and generations. He spoke about unity, love, and following the path of Pope Francis. His words hit home, urging people to help those in need, to build connections instead of barriers, and to celebrate the Church's diverse global family. He said tradition isn't just old stuff, it's alive, growing with every person who embraces it with an open heart. Then, something special caught everyone's eye. The papal staff, usually topped with a crucifix, now had a small carving of the Santo Niño, the Holy Child, a cherished symbol of Filipino faith. This quiet but bold touch honored his heritage and showed the Church was ready to embrace its worldwide family in a new way. In that moment, old traditions blended with new roots, and the world saw Asia's faith shining bright. A new era for the Church had begun, rooted in respect for the past and excitement for what's next. Across Asia, as the sun rose, a wave of hope spread. From packed cities to quiet villages, people felt something stir. Faith, often a soft hum in daily life, now burst out, loud and joyful. In Manila's lively streets, where colorful jeepneys zipped through crowds, the news spread like lightning. People stopped, checked their phones, whispered excitedly, and gathered in little groups to celebrate. The city, already buzzing, seemed to pulse with a new, shared energy. In Thailand's peaceful temples, where monks in bright orange robes glided through quiet gardens, the news brought a gentle wave of spiritual renewal. People lit incense and smiled softly, praying for peace and unity. The calm of the temples stood in sharp contrast to the noisy cities, showing just how deeply this moment was touching all of Asia. In homes and churches, a warm glow of pride and joy spread. Families came together, some crying, others laughing or singing. Old and young, devoted or just curious, everyone joined in the celebration. It felt like invisible threads of faith and hope were knitting Asia into a bright new pattern. Inside churches, the air buzzed with energy. Colorful stained glass windows splashed rainbows across the pews, and the sweet smell of flowers mixed with candle smoke. From fancy altar decorations to simple offerings of fruit and rice, everything showed deep love and happiness. These familiar places suddenly felt new, bursting with possibilities. Prayers of thanks poured out in countless languages: Tagalog, Vietnamese, Mandarin, Tamil, and more. Hymns and ancient chants blended into a joyful chorus that crossed borders and cultures. All over Asia, voices united in gratitude, their differences blending into one beautiful song of faith. Choosing an Asian pope wasn't just a nice moment. It meant so much more. It told millions their faith, struggles, and place in the global church mattered. For many, it was a long overdue nod to their role in the Catholic world. The joy wasn't just for one country, but for a whole region that often felt ignored. This was a game changer, a moment that echoed far beyond any single church. Bells rang, and crowds filled cathedrals and town squares, their faces glowing with hope. People cheered, cried, and hugged, grasping the hugeness of what had happened. It was a celebration of Asia's growing faith and vibrant spirit, which had been quietly shining for years. Young people sang with fresh energy, elders shared tales of strength, and communities bonded like never before. The excitement spread like wildfire, racing from busy cities to sleepy villages, from kids to grandparents. People of all languages, cultures, and traditions came together, their differences making the moment even more beautiful and powerful. Churches overflowed with worshipers, and joyful songs and cheers spilled into the streets. Asia's church wasn't in the background anymore. It was front and center, its voice loud and proud. This showed the world that the Catholic Church is one big global family, connected by faith. Asia's spiritual awakening became a bright light of hope for everyone, proving that faith ignores borders and can spark change from the most surprising places. The world watches in wonder. From hectic newsrooms to cozy living rooms, the world couldn't look away as history was made. Newspapers from New York to Tokyo plastered Pope Luis I's picture on their front pages. TVs glowed with images of prayers and celebrations. Leaders from the United Nations to government palaces sent messages of congratulations and hope. Choosing Pope Luis XIII wasn't just a church event. It was a moment that grabbed the world's attention. The Church embraces the global South. This moment proved faith still matters in our fast-changing world. Pope Luis I's election marked a big shift for the Catholic Church. For centuries, the papacy looked to Europe. Now, it's turning to the global South, Asia, Africa, and Latin America. This is a church that gets the struggles of poverty and unfairness, speaking hope and kindness to those who need it most. Pope Luis I, with his simple roots and passion for justice, is the perfect leader for this new chapter. Hope in every blessing. As Pope Luis XIII shared his first blessings, a wave of hope swept through the air. Here was a leader who understands today's challenges and chooses compassion in conversation. His papacy promises to focus on the poor and forgotten, listening to those who are rarely heard and standing side by side with them. It's a message of hope, showing that faith can still inspire and change the world. Stepping forward with faith. The white smoke has drifted away, but the magic of that day lives on. Pope Luis I, the first Asian pope, shines as a symbol of togetherness and a spark of hope for the world's 1.3 billion Catholics. His leadership opens a fresh page in the Catholic Church's long story, one full of both challenges and exciting possibilities. As the Church celebrates its worldwide family, the world watches eagerly, ready to see where this new beginning leads. Don't miss out. Subscribe to our channel, God Always, for more inspiring videos and captivating stories.